Good afternoon, everyone. This happy birthday award. Happy birthday award. I know we're gonna have some cake and some tea later, but birthday mood. So I didn't prepare like remarks, which could be good or bad. It could be risky. I think it's I'm ignoring those guys over there, so I'm going to come over here. And today is at the culmination of what has been a week of intensive reflection and learning and thinking. This is the last day of our steering committee meeting, where we gather the leadership of this community to sit and reflect on what we've been learning over the last year, especially what we've been doing, what we're learning, and map out priorities and strategies for moving forward. And it feels incredibly fitting that we are having our 10th birthday celebration at the culmination of that long week. Now, earlier, and for me, the theme for this week has really been, personally, that this idea of standing on the shoulders of giants and reflecting deeply about the founding stories, the stories of creation that we tell, that we hold dear. And so it's been just tremendously important as I'm standing here in front of Professor Williams, in front of Peter, in front of Vicky, to just really, that weight of that, the founding stories that have been told about where we have come from and how they inspire and teach us and nurture us into the future we're moving towards. My task here is to try and build upon those founding stories that we've heard and share a bit of where we are headed. And I don't want to do that before taking a moment to just remind us that even if we were to gather here and say, it has been 10 years, it has been a wonderful 10 years, we have done a lot, we have accomplished a lot, let us shut it down and go home, it would have been enough. It would have been enough. The totality of what has happened over the last 10 years is enough. It is magic. It doesn't happen often. It is rare. And so I really want us to sit with that, even as we look forward, to know that it would have been enough to close it here, and we would have made magic that rarely gets made. We are, however, in a fantastic position to say, not yet. Let's keep going for a bit longer. And so my task in front of you is to take a couple of minutes to share with you what that let's keep going longer is shaping out to look like. And I almost feel like I should tell my little story of how I joined AWARD. Some of you know, I came from academia. I'm a political scientist. Don't ask me. I wandered into a room called agricultural research. I did not grow up as a little girl aspiring to lead an organization like AWARD, even though I am so thankful this work chose me. As a little girl, I had my uncle. I grew up. I was raised by an uncle. That's a long story. And he had a subscription to The Economist magazine. And in high school, I remember flipping through, and you guys know at the back of The Economist magazine, they have the job advertisements. And I would flip through, and they had these jobs. And that little girl always aspired to have one of those jobs. And I was going through a really rough time at that. High school was not a time I would happily go back into. But looking through those jobs and aspiring to have one of those jobs was a dream that kept me going through some difficulties. And so, as an older woman, having have gone through academia, having have created and run a girls' leadership incubator, working across East Africa, which is where I met Patricia initially. I knew it was really time to move on, and I remember pulling out an Economist magazine, flipping through to the back, to the job section, and seeing the award director position advertised. And going incredibly full circle, applying for the job and saying, there's no way in hell I'm gonna get this job. And then getting called in for an interview and going, oh my God, this is like a big girl job, and being so nervous. And halfway, people don't know this, but I actually left. I ran away. I went back to my old organization just because I was really freaking out, and gathered myself together and came back again and continued the interview process. I was so incredibly nervous. I remember running into Jemima and telling her, you know, I've been called for an interview for this organization. Have you ever heard of them? And she goes, oh, wow. Remember, I'd gone to give a talk at IDRC about the work that I was doing with girls and young women, and ran into Jemima. And 6 hours later, I think, we were still talking. Like, the people shut offices, went home. She and I were still talking. Anyway, let me get back on track. This is why Mike gets taken away from me, now you see. Okay, let me get back on track. It would be enough if we were to say, it's been 10 wonderful years, let's close and be happy and celebrate what we did. We are incredibly fortunate. And I say we, all of us here, are incredibly fortunate that we're not here to celebrate and close it down. We're here to celebrate, sit with the success, and anticipate and map out, and together hold the responsibility of taking this baby girl into her next 10 years. Now, those of you who have been parents, either by biology or by affection, know that the first 10 years, now I have a 9-year-old, so it's not like I know from experience, So what I hear is, the first 10 years tend to be kind of easier than the teenage years. That's what I've heard. So, much as I want to share where we are going as an organization, we also have a wonderful statement on this continent that says, what does it take to raise a child? What does it take to raise a child? Who do you think the villagers are for this child? And so, the other thing we didn't tell you about why you are here is we have gathered you, the villagers, in charge of raising this child, to tell you your child is about to enter teenage years. Is why we've gathered you here. Yes, you will eat cake and mark the last 10 years. But we are here to tell you your daughter is about to become a teenager, with all the attendant responsibilities that are going to fall upon you, the villagers, to make sure that the next 10 years for this young woman become a 10 years of growth, of empowerment, of confidence, and of impact for this organization. For my role as director and the role as the staff who are there every day with this girl who's entering her teenage years, we can only map out what we think are going to be a strategy for moving forward. At the end of the day, the job of raising this child is whose? Yours, the villagers. So behold, here's your homework. 2017 to 2022, what we are thinking and the vision we have for AWARD is expanding beyond investing in individual women scientists and into a vision of a gender-responsive agricultural innovation system that's working towards agriculture-driven prosperity for Africa. Now, let me not take time to break that down, being that Patricia might start coming towards my mic. Let me move over here. Our mission, the mission of AWARD in the next strategy period, our piece of the pie, our piece of work that we're going to do towards that vision is investing in African women scientists, agricultural research institutions, and agribusinesses to deliver gender-responsive agricultural research and development. And what you're hearing us do is take on a bigger commitment to say it is not enough to invest in women scientists. It is necessary, but not sufficient to drive the kind of transformation that the African agricultural research ecosystem needs. It is necessary, but not sufficient. It is not enough. And that there is a piece around institutions. And that is why, as part of this birthday celebration, we had 2 panels that really reflected heavily on what's next beyond the women. Beyond women fellows, beyond women scientists. What are those institutional levers that need to be pulled? What is the role of donors in ensuring a more gender-balanced research talent force for the continent? We're looking at the role of individuals, institutions, and the broader enabling environment towards this gender-responsive agricultural research system. We will continue the award fellowships, and in fact, let me come back to that. Someone remind me to come back to, there's a celebration we need to do. We will continue the award fellowships. Some of you are very aware of the work that we've been doing around what we're calling GRAD, Gender Responsive Agricultural Research and Development, and our sister Karen alluded to that work where we're supporting a select number of institutions, both for our own learning, to understand what are those levers, what are those mechanisms that it takes to support institutions to become places where a diversity of scientists not just survive, but actually thrive and innovate. We also are looking at a piece we're calling award training. And what we're doing is recognizing that over the last 10 years, and I really want to honor TRG, Laura, and the work that you started. The work that you started with award training and the work that Pauline, where's Pauline? That Pauline has so ably led for us over the last number of years. The A-team, members of the A-team are here. Please stand up. These are some of the leading trainers across the continent. And thank you, you may have a seat. If you haven't had a moment yet, please make it to the exhibition booth and have a look at the trainers booth. Vicky, Peter, you'll be proud to know that we now have 36 African trainers that are part of the A-team. And so we're really focused on growing awards capacity to deliver life-changing, mind-changing learning experiences for the agricultural sector leadership across the continent. And finally, Gaia. We recognize the importance of tracing this gender responsiveness conversation from lab to farm to market. It is important that when we talk about gender responsive research and gender responsive innovation, that this research not just stay on shelves, but we find ways of tracing the way research and innovation gets into the hands of different agricultural value chain actors. And so our program Gaia, Gender and Agribusiness Investments for Africa, is really focused on supporting start-up African agripreneurs to incorporate a gender lens into the growth plans of their businesses. It is not enough to build a successful business. It's not enough to be rich. It is also important that you build wealth and prosperity in a way that lifts others up, in a way that enhances social inclusion and prosperity for all across the continent. And that's the vision that's propelling our work with Gaia. We have a number of agripreneurs who have been through the Gaia Bootcamp. Can they please stand up? I know Cow Tribe are here. Yes, Darwin. And again, these are African agricultural entrepreneurs who are committed to growing a different kind of agribusiness for this continent. And we honor you and we thank you for trusting us to support you in that growth journey for your businesses please take a moment to meet some of the most inspiring business people on this continent who are here. And again, please visit the exhibition. Finally, the celebration piece of it, finally. I keep moving further and further this way because my mic might get taken. Finally, I want us to just take a moment, and I talked about the award fellowships. As you heard from Vicky and from Peter, the award fellowships, and a lot of you here are fellows, have been through that process. The fellowships are the flagship of awards. They are where we began. That is our hearth. In our cultures, you know the hearth. Those 3 stones where food is cooked. That is a sacred space for us in our homes. The award fellowships are that sacred space. But we also recognize that it is important that the food that gets cooked at that hearth also leaves the kitchen and goes out into the world. And it is also important that we embrace transformation and we embrace the changing world around us. And so part of that commitment to change and growth and adaptation to the evolving world around us is what has led us to what we're calling the One Planet Fellowship. Please take a moment again in the exhibition booth to pick up some material or visit our website to learn more about what we're doing with the One Planet Fellowships. And what I want to do for now is take a moment to celebrate a partnership between the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and Jody is here as well, the program officer for that grant, and BNP Paribas Bank, and Sylvan is in the back. And the Agropolis Foundation with Oliver also in the back. You can live to your fans, people. And the One Planet Fellowships, our partnership that brings together $15 million over the next 5 years to invest in the next generation of African and European scientists who are working on issues of climate adaptation with a specific focus on the needs of African smallholder farmers. It is a fellowship that will leverage the lessons we have learned over the last 10 years of running the award fellowship, but deploy it to a new sector and a new area of science, an emerging and critically important area of science for this continent, climate change, and the need for Africa to get ready and prepare our smallholder farmers for a changing climate. It is also a fellowship, and this is one of the things I'm super proud of. It is a fellowship that takes something that was designed for women and begins to test whether those same interventions are relevant for men. Now, a lot of you know, often we build things for men and then paint it pink and then call it for women. Ask your bank. It's what they've done with all the, we did not go off on a tangent. A lot of times we design products and interventions for men, and then we literally pink wash, and then we say, good, this will work for women. What I'm really excited about the One Planet Fellowship is to actually have 5 years to test. Our interventions that were designed for women scientists at the margins of the scientific community, are they relevant, are they useful for men and women? Which men and which women derive the most benefit from these interventions? And so from a science perspective, it is actually incredibly exciting. I want us to just give a round of applause to ourselves as the villagers.